all right. Marc Emery flick coming out at you. How's it going over there? Why don't you guys settle in for a few, and we're gonna we got a Skype caller, and when he's done, we'll get to Miss Carly. We get the guys settled in. Did you get off the plane? Well, yeah, we gotta get it high first. The lovely Carly Montana's over there. We can't just get on the stage. Well, we got a Skype caller first, so we're gonna take this guy. He's a director of the Marc Emery movie, so we'll get you high and yeah, sit up here. Is he on the Skype? Maybe. Thanks. Next week, the lovely Carly Montana and Voodoo, adult film celebrityism at its finest from the Mernahuana zone. I have a good question for you, and we'll just leave it at that. We'll get high because it's a pretty disturbing question. You know me. I'm all about the disturbed questions. You work tomorrow night at the Oasis Lounge. In the morning?
Yeah.
What time? 11 a.m. at Oasis. Who gets up that early? Bong rips for anybody? Weed rips. It's a really nice weed, yeah. Pretty much. We got Sup Carly and Voodoo. Tweet this too. Make sure the Twitters are out there. Oh, is that our guy? Is that the director guy? All right. Question: are you big debut for your movie this weekend in Montreal? What should be
Chris?
Whoa.
Chris, is this Chris Goodwin?
Oh, Christ. No, it's Matt Mernagh. How are you?
Chris Goodwin is here, though.
You want to ask him a question?
I didn't know it was Chris Goodwin. Hi, Chris. Just wanted to thank you for inviting me on the show, and nice to meet you, Matt.
Nice to meet you, too. So, your big debuts this weekend at the Montreal Film Festival. What is this all about?
Well, yes, our world premiere is at the Montreal World Film Festival this Friday, and we've got screenings on Friday at 7 p.m., also on Saturday at 12, and then Monday at 7 p.m. again.
This guy
and
sounds
they're all
high.
the Cineplex in the Latin Quarter on the Rue de Emery, by coincidence.
Oh, I hear that. What is the movie about? What's been going on with Marc Emery in the last couple of years?
Well, two different questions. I'll answer the first one about what the movie's about first, and then answer the second.
That is two questions.
The first question, the movie is about Marc Emery.
Okay.
It's about his entire career, even going back to his childhood. It is a biopic which tells his amazing story. I think that Marc Emery is one of the greatest, most successful activists, not just in marijuana legalization, but just in politics and activism in general, that Canada's ever produced. And one of the greatest, if not the greatest marijuana activist, I think that is living.
Interesting. Okay, so what's Marc been up to the last couple of years? Is that in the movie?
I'll just tell you a little bit more about the movie. The movie's a political comedy because I don't know how well you know Marc, but Marc
I don't know him very well at all, actually.
Marc is an amazing character. He is a genius at creating political theater. He is an amazing performer. He is able to captivate the media and the camera in a way that few people can. And so that leads to a lot of very entertaining, funny stuff. Chris knows him very well, and I'm sure can attribute to this. Marc is a lot of fun to watch, especially when he's got a little steam going. So the movie, looks at everything from his embrace of libertarianism to his legendary prowess with women, from his, his early days as an activist in London right up until his incarceration in the United States in 2011. And Marc is currently serving in a U.S. penitentiary in Yazoo, Mississippi. He is through 3 of 5 years of his sentence, He is there because he was extradited from Canada for being a drug dealer. But really what he was doing was being an activist. He was exporting marijuana seeds from Canada over the internet to America, and had been doing that between 95 and 2005 when he was arrested. And he was making about $1 million a year and putting most of it back into marijuana legalization fights, mostly in the States. And through that and Pot TV and his magazine and all his activism, he became a real target for the Americans. And even though selling marijuana seeds in Canada would only get you a fine, in America, it's a major deal. And so the Americans were able to convince the Canadian government to arrest him on behalf of the DEA in the U.S., and he was then, after a fight of he was arrested in July of 2005, and then he didn't actually go down there until 3 years ago, in 2011, because there was a fight to try to keep him out of extradition. He's clearly a political prisoner, and that's the thing that for people to remember is that he's in jail for not because he was a drug dealer, but because he was one of the major financiers of marijuana legalization on the continent, and deserves at least some degree of credit for the recent legalization of marijuana in Colorado and in Washington State. He put a lot of money into both those places between 95 and 2005.
That's true.
Hey.
Marc did quite a bit for the legalization movement, and it actually says in the DEA press release that the reason they came to Canada and took our Marc Emery away was because of that. What's the name of his prison band? Is that in the movie, about his prison band activity? Because that, I think, I've been reading his blog to be, his prison blog, and he's, in a prison band and stuff. Did you interview him for the movie in prison?
They would not allow me to interview him in prison for the movie, and I think that there's really, his prison blogs are a wonderful way to hear the story of all the stuff he's been up to in prison, which is really amazing, and I encourage everyone to go to cannabisculture.com and read Marc's prison blogs. But we stopped the film with his incarceration, with his extradition to the Americans and his incarceration in a U.S. federal prison. Since we could not film any of the stuff in prison.
It says you were allowed to interview Marc Emery, but just not with a camera.
No. We were allowed to do verbal interviews with him. We could send him questions, but we're not making a newspaper. We're making a documentary. So without footage, it's impossible to do a proper documentary. But I would remind you that Marc has moved mountains before he went to jail. And while the jail stuff is very interesting, his big adventure is really
But hasn't that ground been covered in other documentaries on Marc?
Well, actually,
no.
How
is yours different?
That's a good question. There's been a wonderful documentary made called The Prince of Pot, the United States versus Marc Emery, which is a fabulous film that I encourage everyone to see as well, and that we licensed footage from. And that film was made in 2007. And so that was right after the arrest, and the film is very much the focus of the film is the sovereignty issue and the idea of Marc and his opposition to America over those last few years of the bust. Our film is really a biography. It is an in-depth biography that goes back to Marc's childhood. And also, unlike that film, hold on, I'm almost done. Unlike that film, what our film does, and this is controversial because Marc Emery. But our film puts him on trial. Our film starts
by... Do you think that's appropriate to put Marc Emery on trial? Didn't he already go on trial in America? That's kind of silly. I mean, you just spent all this time saying how great he was, and then you just said your film puts him on trial. What's that about?
Well, it's called journalistic balance. So what we did in the film was
journalistic balance? Are you sure it's journalism balance?
Let me finish.
Quick question.
Then you can talk. We'll take
I
turns.
talk. It's my show. Don't ever tell me when I can talk on my show.
Damn right.
It's my show.
Damn right, Matt.
I talk when I fucking want to talk because I got 2 diplomas in journalism. How many do you have?
Yeah. And you've got Carly
Well
Montana sitting on
I
your
got
chair.
Carly Montana in the chair. People want to get to her. Yeah. So you said you put Marc Emery on trial for journalism balance. Are you TMZ?
What we did was we asked the question at the beginning of the film, should we care that Marc Emery is in jail? Should we care?
Well, I think we should care that there's every marijuana prisoner in jail, don't you? Don't you think everybody charged and in jail with marijuana should be cared for and we should be concerned about these people? They don't deserve to be there. It's a plant. Right?
Yes.
Isn't that the
agree.
first answer to your question? Like he shouldn't be there because it's a plant?
I agree.
Right, let's put people in jail for growing tomatoes.
True, your mom's going to jail.
Yeah, let's put my mom in jail because she grows fucking tomatoes in her garden.
I agree with you both.
Hey, Roger. Chris Goodwin here. Chris Goodwin on the mic. I'm here at the back. I'm actually excited about this, and even more so now that I've heard a few things. But regardless, I've been sent a few messages in the last 48 hours insinuating...
I'll call him a peanut head right now for
the
you,
effect
Rick.
that this is a hit. This movie is a hit piece, and that with 4 hours of interviewing people like me or Jodie Emery or Chris Bennett or Renee or Dana, I think the people that have seen some of the footage and maybe even some of your comments reflect this, that it's almost Michael Moore style. You picked out the 2 minutes that people could say that were negative. So how do you answer that it might be a hit piece?
It's an excellent question, Chris. And, what I would say is that I've spent 7 years on this documentary, and I really believe that Marc Emery is a great activist and is a political prisoner. And the film, when you watch the whole film, makes it clear that we think he's a hero and a political prisoner. But he's also a very complicated character with complicated relationships in his life. And
but is
one
he
of the
even
things
that popular to care about in his complicated relationships?
Well, our film is a psychological biography.
It's not like LeBron James. You know, he's not like he's running for office. Anyways, we have Carly Montana, and she has to go bowling. We'll get back to you in a bit, because I want to talk about porn, and I had to talk about
recommend that everybody goes
Chris,
bowling
can I finish answering this, or should we just call it a day for now?
You got to go bowling when you're
Call us
high.
back in a bit.
It's the
You're
fucking
I thought
best.
you were going to be on 7:20. Everybody's like running late.
Okay, guys,
Have a good movie.
So much for the time.
Montreal
I can't
this
come back
weekend.
now.
This weekend, Montreal Film Festival.
And write a letter to your MP to get Marc transferred. Last thing I want to say is that Marc right now has been okayed for transfer to serve his sentence in Canada. He has 2 more years to serve in prison, and the Americans have finally consented to transfer him to Canada. But now Harper has to consent to that. So I would like you guys to all write your MP, Facebook or tweet your MP, and say that Harper has to approve Marc's transfer to serve his time in Canada. Thank you. And thanks so much for the time in promoting the film. Greatly appreciated. Have a good evening.
Pot TV's in the chat talking about shit. So we got Pot TV, they'll manage that, because we have had a rough fucking week. Man, I woke up to Prime Minister Harper proroguing office. I woke up to an officer getting bail for shooting a young man. I woke up to Elmer the safety elephant. Remember Elmer the safety elephant? He wants to take bongs away.
Yeah.
Can we talk about sex?